now too. So the cartoon starts, again, a political cartoon, but we're not going to dive in the political side of the house. But as you can read, artificial intelligence can give you convincing arguments that are factually incorrect. And out of the mouths of babes, do politicians have artificial intelligence? This highlights a limitation that I want to try to drum into you, and understanding that there's a term called hallucinating or hallucinations. And hallucinations are when the system actually lies. It tells stuff, it makes things up, and it's not true. So you need to be very careful of any outputs that you hear or see or get a feel for. And so I'm going to ask that you be aware of the term hallucinations and be understanding that this tool has its limitations on what it can do. You're in the right place. GPT 0 to hero. That's what we're going to be talking about. We have a 3-hour session. Intense, lots of information, lots of cool stuff. I'm going to bring your attention to 2 things on the bottom of the screen, 2 URLs. The first is a tiny URL. You have full access to this presentation, all the resources. There's lots of links to YouTube videos, to all kinds of PDF files, to newsletters, to tools, and you will have full access by going to the tinyurl.com/nmscpa-z2h, which is 0 to hero. And I'm going to actually go one step further, and I'll talk about the LinkedIn address. I wrote a book on LinkedIn. I'm a fan. You're welcome to connect. I'm at Dr. Scott CPA, as I brand, and as it's all about personal branding these days, right? You also have a QR code. You can take a picture of this QR code, or as I said, remember the tiny URL, and you'll have full access to this presentation on where you're going, what you're doing, and be able to access things. But I'm going to go ahead and ask a non-survey question. It's going to be a chat question. On a scale of 1 to 5, where are you at? I want to make sure I'm gauging this properly to the audience, because again, I say this is about you and I want to maximize your benefit. So I'd like to get a feel for where you're coming from. So if you can spell GPT, that's the basics. But if you've heard of it, maybe not used it. 3, used it a few times, but not necessarily a regular user. Maybe you are a regular user, number 4, and maybe you're a power user. So I've got a regular user. I got a couple of folks that are more heard of it, but not really used it, not really into it. And someone in the middle a few times and not regularly. Okay, that gives me a gauge. So you're in the right place. We're going to cover a lot of ground. Okay, another number 3, thank you. We're going to go down the path of, and I'll have it outlined in a second. I'll give you the agenda for today. But before we do that, I want to show you a few power features that this tool can do. And when I say power features, we're going to talk about ChatGPT 3.5 and GPT-4. GPT-4 is the paid version. I'll go into more details. And let's go ahead, and I'll go take a look at the agenda as we speak right now. Where are we headed today? So I'm going to demo some advanced tools for you. I'm going to go in and actually read a spreadsheet off in the cloud. I've got a Walmart spreadsheet on financials, and it's going to do the analysis for us. You're going to talk about as the presenter. We're going to get some general and accounting specific use cases. Again, more background information on how you can use this stuff. And I'll ask some of you how you've been thinking about it based on things you've been hearing. We're going to set the stage of what we know. And again, I'm pointing out ChatGPT 3.5 is the free version, and it's not ChatGPT 4. It's actually just GPT-4, technical difference, but that is a $20 a month version. And that's what I'll be demoing most of the time. But everyone in this call, everyone in this room has access for free to ChatGPT 3.5. And the resistance is futile for any fellow Star Trek fans. If you know about the Borg, this has taken the world by storm, and we cannot resist. It's going to change life as we know it. We'll talk about benefits, limitations, and some of the AI ethics. I just wrote a paper on AI ethics on this stuff. Future of jobs. What's the workplace? What's the workforce look like? Is it going to be 45% unemployment? Or is it going to be different stuff we get to do? And we'll talk more about that. That's pretty much the first hour. Then we'll have a part 2 and a part 3, the second and third hours. We'll go into prompt engineering. Can you put a yes or no in the chat if you've heard the term prompt engineering or might have some familiarity with that, please? Because prompt engineering is a $300,000 a year job before the November 30 release of ChatGPT 3.5. People were making money. So the prompt engineering, we'll talk more about how to design a prompt. How do we query the system? how do we have a dialogue, which is exactly what it is. It's not a one-sided entry. It's a dialogue with this powerful tool. And I have two methods on this prompting or prompt engineering. And the Dr. Scott D method, I didn't have to copyright or trademark. But the R star is probably what we'll focus a little more simpler on that front. So let me start off by doing a show and tell. And I did an analysis here. I went into Walmart and I said, okay, analyze Walmart's financials. And it said, sure. Actually, I got 5 different responses. The first response I did in ChatGPT 3.5, the first version was free. And it said, I don't have any data. I don't know how much Walmart did, because I said, perform an analysis of the financial statements of Walmart. GPT-4 had a similar response because there's limitations on the time. We'll get to giving you why the September 21 is a significant date on the end of data for some of this stuff. And then there are 2 plugins that's only available on GPT-4. It's like an app on your phone. There's over 1,000 plugins that can do some cool stuff. You can make Expedia reservations and say, hey, I need to fly out next Tuesday to Cleveland. Find me the least expensive fare in the morning. And it will do it. So we'll talk more about some of the tools and how those work. Then there's another plugin, a browser that you can pump in a URL. And I did. I went to the Walmart website. I said, here's the Walmart URL. And that's cool. I can go in and analyze financials. And it did a pretty decent job. Most of you, if you have clients that you serve, are probably not serving publicly traded companies. You can't go on to SEC's Edgar and download the 10K report and then take the financials off. But I guarantee most of you that are serving your clients will have a spreadsheet on your local hard disk or somewhere in the cloud that you can access. And I'm going to demonstrate that access right now. There's a tool built into 4, not 3.5 again, not the free version, but the paid version called Advanced Data Analysis. It's not a plugin. It's an additional tool, and I'll show you how to use it in a minute. And you, again, have access to this presentation. And I have another tiny URL. As I said, I love those tiny URLs. And you have WMT, which is a ticker symbol for Walmart, GPT analysis. So if you go to that tiny URL, you will get all 5 of these outputs. And you'll see the conversation. You'll see how it works. So I'm going to fly over, and I'm going to switch over to GPT-4, so that you're going to be able to see GPT-4 in action. And if I go I'll switch over to GPT-4. And here is where we have a picture of GPT 3.5 is something we can use, our fastest model, great for most everyday tasks. And can everybody see the screen? I'm hoping that everybody has full access and can see it now. And then I have GPT-4, which has a default. It has browse with Bing, and you can get free access to 4.0 through Bing, but you can't do a whole bunch of things like I'm doing right now, this advanced data analysis. Thank you for the yeses, appreciate that. So advanced data analysis, which is in beta, and the plugins. There's 1,000 plugins you have access to. So I'm going to go GPT-4. I'm going to click on the advanced data analysis. Now, one thing happens. I've got a plus sign next to my message. Before I did the data analysis, I'm not going to have a plus sign. So this plus sign is going to allow me to search my drive, go in and I'm going to go after the Walmart. Here we go, financial report. I got a spreadsheet. And as I said, you probably may not have a URL that you can go to a website for your clients, but I'm guaranteeing almost all of you will have a spreadsheet that you can load. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to say, please perform a financial analysis of Walmart with the attached spreadsheet. And it's going to actually read that spreadsheet. It's to actually do some data. Something seems to have gone wrong. Oh, I love these live demos. Let's try that again. Regenerate. Okay, let's try it. Nope, doesn't like it. And let's try a new chat. And let's try it again. I'm going to do it one more time. And then the backup is I've got the URL to go to. So I'm going to add here. I'm going to add the spreadsheet. And I'm going to go through and have that available. And I'm not going to waste a lot of time if it doesn't work. But it's a computer. Sometimes it hangs up. And I'm going to go back here. I'm going to actually get the exact prompt here. That plugin. So perform analysis of the uploaded financials. And if it doesn't like it here, we are not worried. I'll be able to show you the document that I've created. All right, let's start by loading the uploaded financial statement to Walmart. Structured content. After that, we can proceed with an analysis. Now, the GPT 3.5 is very quick. This reminds me of an old teletype. If you know, the teletype machines, the typewriters that come up, it's a little bit slower in processing. So now it's working. It's analyzing. It's saying, oh, I got a spreadsheet here. Cool. Let me take a look at it. And by the way, it has a balance sheet, an income statement, and a cash flow statement. Those are the three statements I have in that spreadsheet. And it's finished working. Upload report contains 3 sheets. Yep. I just told you that, but it can tell you too. It knows now. Let's take a closer look, starting with consolidated statement of income. Okay, it's going to work on it. So you can perform analyses and you can ask it questions. All right, it says what it does, 23, 22, 21. Yep, I got 3 years on the income statement, 2 years on the balance sheet. Sales, membership, total revenues, go. Proceed, I'll continue reviewing. All right, keep going. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but I just want you to get a feel when it starts pumping out the numbers. It's going to say, here's the numbers, here's the trends, here's the analysis. And it starts by describing what it has and what it can do. Okay. And I'm going to stop generating and I'm going to ask it, please perform a trend analysis and a vertical analysis. Let's do a common size of the income statement. It can do charts. It can do graphs. It can do all kinds of data. And here we go. Text percentage, trend percentage. Now it's explaining it. I don't want to explain it. I want to do it. Now, every time you ask it a question, it'll give a different response. So I've asked this question before, and sometimes it jumps right into the numbers. Sometimes it goes into the analysis and explains what the analysis is, and it is all designed in the prompt. So it's not giving us yet. Come on, I don't need to know how you calculate. I just want you to do it. And let's see, I'll perform both analyses. There we go. Let's start with trend analysis. Okay, take your time. And again, you have the full printout, the full document, the tiny URL that actually there was a dialogue. It actually gives a lot of analysis and gives you total sales. It pumps all the numbers and it can do all the graphs and charts. And there's some graphs and bar charts that are included there as well. So, and if it doesn't take too much longer, I'm going to bounce out of here and let you see what's going on. Okay. So I'll come back to that if it comes up, but I want to actually go ahead and give it, I'm going to go to that tiny URL and let it give you an idea of what the output looks like, because it is a pretty powerful way of analyzing things. So if I go here, I'm going to go share again, and it's right there. So here's the Walmart analysis, and there's 3.5, there's 4, but then it started with this plugin, starts giving us some numbers and some analysis. Then it goes in the direct link to the website, more of the analysis, some tables, revenues, vertical, horizontal. And finally, it explains it, but then it jumps right into the numbers directly. Sales, membership, total revenues. And then it has balance sheet information. And as of January 31. But then it starts analyzing. Proceed with the detailed, and you, by the way, you have a polling question for CPE. So please go ahead and answer accordingly and make sure you can get your credit. I know we all need our CPE, and this is a good class to have it on. So we got 5 responses, good to go, 100% yes. And I'm going to end the poll and going to be, I'll share it because you can see it, and then I'll stop the sharing and close it out. So down here, it says there's some ratio analysis, explains some ratios and the current, the quick, profit margin, ROE, finish working, income growth, membership and other sales. And then it has some analyses. I say, you want me to tell you some more? Sure, please do. Liquidity, profitability, efficiency. This is all generated in a matter of minutes out of GPT-4. I've re-uploaded it. It had a problem here too. It kind of panicked a little bit. Net cash, operating, financing, visual representation, some charts, some graphs. And again, you have full access to everything here as you see it. Okay. And bar charts and trends and what's going. So this gives you an insight into some of the analysis of where it goes, what it can do pretty gracefully just by taking a spreadsheet, analyzing it, asking it some questions. Let's go back and take a look at the We'll go back to our presentation. And there's some other things here I'm not going to go through, but it can analyze a YouTube video with this plugin. 2.5-hour video. Sam Altman, co-founder of OpenAI, and Lex Friedman out of MIT, sharp folks, had a 2.5-hour discussion. You don't want to hear a 2.5-hour video, which I did watch the 2.5-hour video on high speed, so it was a little bit less, but it summarized the 2.5-hour video in 10 points. That's the response. So we can summarize YouTube videos in a matter of minutes. Okay. And then I did a video prompt, create a video accounting classroom that simulates student interest and engagement in the subject. This is the response it gave me. AI in the accounting classroom, a guide for educators. It made the title. It has the details, description. It has tags. It has artificial intelligence accounting, and it has a video. And it produced a 1-minute video, complete with closed captioning, complete with people, complete with speak, complete with music in the background, just by asking it in a matter of minutes. No intellectual property confusion and no restrictions. And there's a bunch of other plugins that I've tried. I said networking 101 with a horror theme, and it talks about the horrors of networking. So it's kind of an interesting orientation that it can create videos. It can analyze spreadsheets. It can read PDFs. You can have a 20-page article out of a PDF, or even a Forbes article, a Fortune article, or a Wall Street Journal article. Cut and paste it, summarize this thing. I don't have time to read it, and it will summarize accordingly. And then if you want to do a deeper dive and go read it, have a good time. So what does Sam Altman have to say about this program in general? Well, he said it's slow, it's buggy, it doesn't do a lot of things real well, but neither did the very earliest computers. And this is about the latest and greatest. This is about GPT-4, not about 3.5. So if we're looking at this and saying, wait a minute, founder says it's pretty not suited for a lot of things. Well, just think about when it really came out. It was really November 30th that this hit the marketplace and people started using it. It's been around for more years. Actually, AI has been around for over 60 years. Obviously not at this level, and we'll talk more about that as we go. I have another survey question I'm going to ask. So please let me know, have you used AI before? Have you used it? You're not sure? No, yes, or don't do surveys on Zoom. So please respond accordingly. I get a no. And anybody else? No, never used. And let's see what else coming in. Anybody else? Oh, not sure. Oh, that's actually a pretty interesting answer, because the reality is, oh, not sure again. Okay, we got some folks thinking about this. I will say that I guarantee you've either been on Netflix, you've talked to Siri, you said, "Hey, Alexa," more than once, or you maybe use Google Maps or Waze or anything else that actually does use AI. So, okay, it was a trick question. I guarantee no more trick questions. Artificial intelligence is alive and well. It's been around, it's being used, and frankly, chances are you are likely more to use it through another tool. Maybe it's a tax preparation tool. Maybe it's through Microsoft Office or through Google search or something else. They have AI built into them as well. Salesforce has Einstein. There are other tools out there that are growing, and in all kinds of arenas. QuickBooks is integrating it into AI into their system as well. So you'll be using it, but most likely through another application, even if you don't prompt it like we do here. So who the heck am I? Okay, let's get to I'll be very brief on my background. Yep, I'm a big, okay, it says Big 4 alum. The truth is I'm a Big 8 alum. Big 8 Boston, way back when, or EY, it was Arthur Young at the time. Got my doctorate in 2019, a newly minted doctor, and I was not the oldest to graduate in my class at the University of Wisconsin out of Whitewater. I have a master's in education and MBA from Wharton. I'm also a Navy veteran, and I've been teaching full-time for 15 years. I love academia. I love my students. I love sharing. 2 other things I'll mention on here, or actually 3. Down here, I've got a LinkedIn newsletter. The latest is up to version Capsule 9, but Capsule 8 does some academia research and some information. But the career capsule, I don't write it in AI, but every career capsule issue has a conversation in AI at the end. So I'm not using it to write the text. I'm grammar checking, spell checking. I use Grammarly a lot, but as a tool, I am using my my own thoughts. And sometimes I use it to seed. I actually will ask AI some ideas if I'm trying to figure out how to write an article. Published a book on LinkedIn, Your Complete Guide to Succeeding with LinkedIn, a few years back. A week and a half ago, Living Your Dream Career, just released, co-author out of Wisconsin as well, out of Madison. And that was just introduced. We have a course that goes with that and a workbook and some other tools and videos. But I'm going to bring your attention to this thing called Colisean. Colisean, I type it in English and I introduce my assistant, Roger. And if I go in, I'm going to go through and I'm not going to play it back for you, but I just want to show you an idea of what it's about. And let's see, if I go through, okay, so here's Roger. He knows over 75 languages, is willing to work 24/7, and has never asked for a raise since I've been working with him. It's AI.
Hi, my name is Richard. I am thrilled to be able to introduce you to Dr. Scott Dell.
Okay.
Bursting with energy and
okay, so that's I'm not going to play the 2-minute video. If you want to, you can. But one other thing I want to show you is I translated it to Spanish and I translated it into Chinese. My wife's Hispanic, Dominican Republic. And if you look at what she has, she actually listened to the Spanish and said, that was pretty amazing. My co-advisor for my dissertation is from Taiwan, and he listened to this Chinese. And if I take a minute and you'll see watch the lip sync on this.
你好，我的名字是理查德，我很高兴能够向你们介绍斯科特戴尔。
And again, I won't bore you with 2 minutes of things I don't either understand. I can count from 1 to 10 in Chinese, but that's as far as I go. But I know the ni hao, and he did a good job. So these are tools that you can use for translation, or if you need to present something to someone who's not a native speaker, or you're in a different country, a different environment. It's pretty powerful. It's pretty cool. So I just want to bring your attention to that and make you aware of those kind of tools. And again, these are all links are here. It's even in Indonesian. Got a prediction for you. Soon you will have your own personal concierge or tutor, or what we call a PVA, personal virtual assistant. You need a haircut. You want to set up an appointment for next Wednesday. Hi, PVA, can you go ahead and set my hair appointment? I need to fly out. I used that Expedia example earlier. Or you want something, you have a question saying, yeah, my client's talking about this new carnivore diet. And can you just give me the executive summary. What's this carnivore diet all about? And it's even better than Alexa. It's even better than Siri when you're asking questions. I'm going to mention Claude down here. By the way, if you probably heard about a month and a half ago in the White House, there was a meeting of the heavy hitters. Microsoft showed up, Amazon showed up, OpenAI was there. Then came in Alphabet, which is our Google friends. Meta was there, Facebook. 2 other folks you may not have heard of. One was Anthropic, who just signed a deal with Amazon for $1.4 billion with a potential of $4 billion total in the next few years. Anthropic has something called Claude 2. I love Claude. Great tool, similar to Bard, similar to ChatGPT. Amazing tool. And then Inflection is a personal assistant. Inflection, but both representatives from Inflection, or the CEOs of Inflection and Anthropic, were there. So those are 2 other names to watch. So what can you do with this stuff? Let's talk some general use cases before we get into specifics. Product research, springboard for ideas. It is a tool you can ask questions and have a conversation and dialogue. Refine this. Anytime I send a letter out to sometimes I send a letter to 4,000 students. Sometimes I'll send a letter to the CEO of a company or the president of the college. I'm sure going to check it. I'm going to actually, before I do that, I'm going to have the system kind of tweak it a little bit sometimes. And even when I do a blog post or my newsletter, I'll have it check it. I'll go through it. Or I'm doing any type of social media post, Facebook or LinkedIn. I do a lot of LinkedIn. Social media ideas and content, agendas, meetings, summarizing articles like we just talked about, PDFs and videos. Create schedules. I'm going to Madrid. I love museums. I love food. Can you give me a schedule Monday through Friday of restaurants to go to and museums that I can find and things that are close by? And it will do that. Beware, it hallucinates. Verify that the restaurant exists, that the museum exists. But most of the time, it's actually pretty good at doing stuff like that. Business planning, negotiation tips. How about for accounting? Again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these use cases, but for recruiting, analyzing big data, audit programs, market trends, grammar and spell checking, cool stuff. And again, I've got links to other things that obviously we don't have time to cover here, but we'll give you some insights into where to go. Audit prompting. There's actually a podcast, accounting podcast by Blake Oliver. He does a really good job. I got a link to that as well. Engagement letters, management letters, internal controls, talk about pricing, how to figure this stuff out, testing of internal controls, proposed ideas. How did an accountant use Excel? Well, how about Excel generate formulas, extract data? I was trying to do an average and I was doing some grading and I said, wait a minute, it took an average of only the cells that had numbers. I had a bunch of blank cells in there. I said, what's the formula with blank cells to calculate an average? And it helped me figure that out because I didn't want to go in and do the Google search and do the figuring out. I just asked GPT-4 actually, and it was there. Formatting graphs, tips and techniques, analyze content, data cleansing. In this day of data analytics, we got to cleanse the data before we use it and have access to it. Working with macros, creating code, debugging, explaining. This is a great coding tool as well. And if you actually use R or Python or some other language and you kind of get stuck because it's not working, you can just plug the whole program and say, what's going wrong here? And it usually does a pretty good job of analysis. I'm guessing some of you are in the tax area, and you can see here on the left, you have public accountants in the gray, and on the right, you have private accountants, corporate accountants. Number one, what are they using for? Tax research. Well, the public accounting is back to back office functions, accounting and bookkeeping, and some other things down the road. The corporate side is not only using it for research, but number two is compliance, and then question answering, and then tax advisory. So this, particularly from a tax perspective, gives you some insights. And then platforms, ChatGPT is the top AI on tax firms. That's what they're using. GPT is the freebie, is the free version. If you go down Bing Chat, Microsoft Copilot, I'll give it a byline. I am super impressed by Microsoft Copilot, which will work with Microsoft Office. But I'm also going to go next. We're going to do some breakout rooms. We're going to take a 5-minute breakout room. And in that breakout room, I'm going to divide into 2 rooms. So it should be 3 of you and 4 of you in the rooms. I'm going to have you introduce yourself, 30 seconds. Choose a recorder, someone that's going to jot down some ideas, because I have a question for you. How do you now use, or how do you anticipate using this powerful environment, this artificial intelligence, this generative artificial intelligence? Then we're going to go into the background, but I want to get, now that you saw some of the use cases and some of the things that other people are doing, I want to get some ideas of if you've used it or if you've seen it used, or some ideas on how you might think you would use it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create breakout rooms, and you're going to go in and take a chance. And we have another polling question. So let's keep your CPE on track. We'll keep you going. All right. And you get 3 out of 3, 4, 5, 6. Cool. Okay, good to go. And pull. And actually, if you can come on screen, especially in breakout rooms, it's advantageous so your compatriots can see you, not just me, but everybody else can see you as well. And so I'm going to ask you to come on camera if you can, and you're going to come on audio as well if you can. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out the breakout rooms, and we're going to give you 5 minutes in the breakout room to have that conversation and to think about what you are going to be using this for, maybe how you've seen it used. What is it that you've found that could be interesting? And again, we can actually talk more about how we're going to do things here. So I'm going to create 2 rooms, and we're going to have everybody 3 in a room, and we're going to open all rooms, and we're on our way. So go ahead and join the room that you are assigned to, if you don't mind, and we'll get you going, and we'll see you shortly, and I'll give you a minute warning when it's time. So go ahead and take it away. Thank you. Everybody's in their rooms. Excellent. Okay. So did you get a chance to get to know each other a little bit and compare some notes? If anybody would like to come back on, we had 2 groups. So please, I'd love to hear your share of what your ideas were. And I think each group can cross-pollinate between the other as well. Who would like to go first?
I'll go first, Dave. This is Dave Kruger. Amy and Meredith and I were in a group, and I shared some ideas that I had wanted to use this to help compiling some presentations that I need to do for annual to upper management. I'm a manager of internal controls, so I go through and do testing, and we do a annual controlled management self-assessment, and I'd like to be able to take 1 year's data to the previous years and have it do the analysis and create a nice PowerPoint presentation for me with charts and graphs, which it sounds like from what you said, Doctor, how we can do. So that would save me a lot of time. I usually spend like 2.5 days doing this. If ChatGPT can do it for me, or whatever IA product can do it for me in 15 minutes, that'd be great.
I tell you what,
other
if you're a
thing-
professional, it'll 10x what you can do. And I was hearing in one of the breakout rooms, he was talking about the idea that, yeah, if how's a student going to evaluate critically thinking through some of these problems in academia, and they can't. So if you're an amateur, a novice, a new user, or a student, it won't be as effective for you. But if you're a professional and you can read that and say, this is junk, this is garbage, or this is right on, you can interpret it accordingly. So it's pretty powerful stuff. So thank you for sharing. Were you using 4 or just 3.5 so far?
I looked at 3.5, and I didn't get anything. Of course, I haven't spent a lot of time on it. I spent maybe a half hour or so, and I just couldn't get anything back. And that's when I determined I need to take a class like yours to get me started in the right direction and how to do the prompts. I understand that prompt engineering is very important, and if it's true they make $300,000, maybe I should change my profession.
Temptation's there, isn't it? Right?
Correct.
Anybody, any other ideas that came out of the group that you want to share, or any of your other fellow?
Yeah, well, Amy said they wanted to do basically. She has her own practice, so she wanted to see what we can do to help her make her more efficient, and stuff. And then Meredith indicated that she wants to do some Excel analysis. She was, like you said, upload some Excel spreadsheets and have it do the analysis for you. And I think Amy had the same thing, basically to make our jobs easier. So
That's what I
think, yeah.
Very cool. Excellent. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate it, Dave.
Okay, no
And
problem.
number 2, group. I know you were talking.
Yeah, we were. So John, Amy, and I, and John, actually, I thought how he's using it is the best. He's the CFO of a company, and he has his team using it to write their memos. And so they'll do a draft or a letter, and then it comes out more professional. And so they're learning to be better professional writers that way. So I thought that was extremely interesting, that it's an effective use. Now, John, you didn't say if you were using 3.5 or 4 or what you were using.
Some of us are using 3.5, some are using 4.
Okay.
Now, any other ideas are coming out? Because I was hearing some interesting stuff when I was in the rooms too.
Well, I'm interested in how you're using it in the classroom, Scott.
Okay, I'll be sharing that. Someone was also talking about how they were using it as an auditor to check transactions, duplicates, and just trying to do the analysis with some big data and pumping in things in. So I thought that was kind of interesting in the conversation as well. So, but you'll see these use cases that I have listed. Powerful. Any other insights? Anything else? Anybody else would like to add? And before I go back to the main presentation. Okay, then I will go ahead and continue onward. And then we're going to go a little more background on how it works. And I'll talk about using it in the classroom and using it in business. But first, I just want to give you a little bit of history lesson. What we know came out November 30th, 2022. That's less than a year ago. And then about 4.5 months later, GPT-4 came out. Now, Sam Altman has said GPT-5, no rush, 2025 is probably the release. I'm hearing a lot of people saying it's going to come out sooner because some of the competitors like Alphabet or Google folks have updated theirs. Amazon is pulling rank. Meta with Facebook is pulling rank. So there's a lot of new competitors in the marketplace. So they're upgrading it continuously. And they're not making it a 4.1 or a 4.2. It's a 4.0, but it's the release date changes to September 27th, for example. So they have about every month they've got a new release coming out, but they're not changing versions, they're just dating it. But it is feared, and it is liked. Some people go on the deep end on both sides of that. But it is pervasive. Everyone's using it. Oh, but did I say it hallucinates? It lies. It makes things up. Yeah, it does hallucinate. So be careful. I heard that in the breakout rooms too, that, students are trying to use it. How are we going to teach them critical thinking? We'll talk more about that. So when it was launched November 30th, in 1 million users in 5 days. That's a lot of folks popping in within less than a week. Okay. I was late to the party. I came in probably day 8. So I was probably part of the 2nd million users. But I will tell you, it's now up to many, many more, because you can see that to 100 million users only took 2 months. I had to correct this slide. It used to be the fastest. TikTok was 9 months, Instagram was 30. But Threads by Facebook or by Meta had 100 million users in 5 days. So that beats it. It's a Twitter, the X replacement. But I will confess, I was part of that 5 days, and I have not been on it since. And most people that I know have not been on it either. It's like Clubhouse, if you've heard of that going on during COVID. That was an audio only platform. This is, I don't know anybody who's using Threads, but I know a lot of folks using ChatGPT. I'm going to get academic for a minute. You probably heard of Moore's law. Chips double or capacity on the microchip doubles every 2 years, and the cost isn't half. There's a guy named Sevilla came out with a study and said that AI has been doubling every 6 months, which means quadrupling every year. That's been happening for over 10 years. So talk about exponential growth, like the classic hockey stick. There's new algorithm techniques, large data sets, but the biggie is the computer power, the horsepower that runs this stuff that's out there is growing exponentially. So you will be having all kinds of speed, all kinds of capabilities. And when we get to quantum computing, the sky's the limit. Watch out. Quote by Bill Gates in 1996 in his book, The Road Ahead: "We always overestimate the change in the next 2 years and underestimate the change in the next 10. I'm going to jumpstart that and say we overestimate 6 months and underestimate 2 years. It's really accelerating. So the pace of this stuff has sped up incredibly so. I said it's been around for over 60 years. Enigma was the old the German tool for coding of messages. Artificial intelligence, the Turing test. There's some things on here. And by the way, there's a polling question. So again, let's get your CPE going. So please answer accordingly. And we got the 5 out of 5. We're good to go. We'll end the poll, share the results, and I'll stop the share, and you can kill it on your screens as well. The only thing I'll mention on here is GPT-4, March 14th. I take it back. I'm going to mention one more thing. Microsoft, which purchased half or 49% of OpenAI about 6 months ago, has the ability, they paid about $10 billion for half that company. They are integrating it with their Bing search engine. They're trying to lobby against, compete with Google, and they're actually not doing a bad job of it. There's also a condensed timeline. Again, I'm not going to go through this, but you can read that at your leisure as it goes. So what's the detail here? GPT-2 was released February 19. GPT-3 came out in June of 20, so just over a year. And about a year and a half later, 2.5 years later, ChatGPT 3.5 with human training came out. But look at the expansion that it went from 40 gig to 570 gig. And now we have 50 times the 3.5, a trillion plus parameters on March 14th. I'll mention some other players. Llama 2 out of Meta, the Facebook folks. Alphabet has Bard and Lambda. Amazon has Lex. Salesforce has Einstein. Well, let's talk how this works. Let's understand how this works, because it will really highlight why it hallucinates, why it works well, and where it might not work well. We know it's been around for over 60 years, but it is a word completion tool. What it does, it predicts the next word. So if I said, Chicken Little was right, the sky is, and you might guess falling with a 90% probability. I had someone in a session say blue. That might be a 20% probability. It's a word projector. It's going in and saying, well, I'm going to project the next word based on this big data set that I start, the foundation. You ask me a question, I'm going to give you an answer. I'm going to figure out what it is. The catch is if you've ever seen the game of telephone played when you were a kid, or your kids played it, and they say, no, you're in 2nd grade, and you say, here's a message, pass it on. And then you say, next person, pass it on. Pass it on. By the 3rd person, it's getting distorted. By the 10th person, it has no resemblance of what any of the idea is of what the original message was. And that can happen with ChatGPT and GPT-4. It veers off. It projects a word, and then it goes off in a wild direction. I asked a question in my class. He's in my class a lot, or my classes. I said, give me the name of a book. maybe it was in business and history and English. So student gave me a name of a book. Summarize the book. And you can ask for symbolism. You can ask for all kinds of cool stuff. It summarized the book and said, the father and son went on this journey together through trying times, and they came out knowing each other better, understanding each other, and life was glorious. The only challenge was the dad died in the end. So if you submitted a book report saying life was glorious in the end, you would have missed the point. And anybody who had read the book, including the English teacher that assigned it, would have said, that's not your work because you did not read the book, because that's not exactly what happened. So it can veer off in a direction. And it's very noticeable when you are an expert. I say you can 10x what you do as an expert. Some other terms, generative AI or GAI, and AI chatbots, same thing. The warning is, it says artificial intelligence. It's not intelligent. It's an algorithm. It's a computer. It's also known as a large language model. Gobs and gobs of data foundation. It stops. At the bottom, you see September 2021 for 3.5, and just recently, January 2022 for 4.0 is where the data stops. The buck stops here. You can't get data past that, although those add-ins I just talked about, the plugins, as well as the other tools, allows you to access current URLs and current information. It uses natural language processing, an NLP term, not neuro-linguistic programming for some of the coaches and consultants in the area. But it used something called reinforcement learning from human feedback. And that's why is that important? RLHF. Well, they had people evaluating, and Kenya was the main country, and I think it was like less than $2 an hour. There's actually some lawsuits going on around about that now from Kenya about what was going on and how they were using folks. But the key here is they give 5 different chat responses and say, which one's better? And you say, oh, B is better. Someone else says, next 5. Oh, C is better. Next 5. Oh, B is back to better. Next 5. D is the answer. And it learned from human interaction what wording is appropriate, sounds better, can be more convincing. And it is very convincing. And I do worry about my students reading this stuff and making sense of this stuff with answers. And I'll explain in a few minutes how I use it for testing. GPT-4. It is very powerful. It is more powerful, partially because look at the dot on the right-hand side. The dot, this is to scale, by the way. GPT-3 is a dot. GPT-4 is that ball on the right. Has so much more potential, so much more capacity, so much more it can do. And when you see that, you say, wow, there's a lot of stuff here that is in as far as data sourcing. You're down here, GPT-4 can recognize tables, pictures, handwritten images. You take some notes, and you could be on your iPad, or you're taking notes on your phone, or you just written notes, take a picture of it. It can interpret that and analyze that. GPT-3.5 cannot, but 4 has that ability to read images, graphics, and see things. It's called multimodal language model. A lot more capacity, 25,000 words of input rather than 3,000 words, and more of the interaction with those web links and access. And it's upgrading, changing, evolving. So what do we have here? Notice the blue, that's 3.5. It does pretty good on some tests, AP history, AP psychology, but it didn't do so well on the bar exam. It was in the 10th percentile with 3.5. It didn't do well on the quantitative GREs, at 25th percentile. And if you're a wine connoisseur, the advanced sommelier exam only got a 46%. But you add the green to that, you jump to 4.0, it is amazing. It is incredibly powerful. It has so much more capability to be right. It's still wrong, often. It still can hallucinate, but a lot less. I'll give you some stats in a few minutes. But here's the power of 4. Remember those things I talked about, the plugins, like the apps you have on your cell phone? Well, the plugins called APIs, you have the ability to go out to the web, to use other resources, to use third-party tools, and see what they can do for you. Canva is now having a plugin that you can link. Canva is a great graphics design tool that I've used quite often, and it's a great design logos, graphics, images, advertising, whatever it might be. There's a Canva plugin now, fairly recent. And you get real-time information. Remember I said you're limited to the September 2021 in 3.5, the January 2022 in 4.0. Well, with that, you now can extend to the current web. Yeah, take this company's website. What's their mission, vision, and values? Tell me the board member's name. And I'll tell you, I actually did an analysis. I went in and I said, give me the board name. There's a publicly traded company. I needed the board of directors. Give me the names of the board members of this company. It was the Southern Novelty Products company. And they've got a lot of employees. They got a major facility here and a global. Gave me 8 names. Not one of them was right. Everyone was incorrect. There were some people in the industry. None of them were part of the board. I said, maybe it's that September 2021 thing. Maybe they all 100% board change. No, that wasn't it. I've asked it for names of books and resources, names of podcasts. Give me URLs. I said, I was doing some marketing. I said, give me the 50 names of the CPA associations, all of their executive directors or CEOs. Give me their email address and give me the URL and the address and the phone number of the society. Phone numbers were actually pretty good. Not one of the 52 names I got was correct on any of them. I asked for books. I asked for books on topics. It gave me 22 really good books and 3 it made up the names. If you're doing research, academic research, my last query, it gave me 10 articles, 2 didn't exist on GPT-4. I actually did the same thing with something called Claude 2. It gave me 25 articles that 2 didn't exist. 8% failure versus 20% failure. Cool tool. So let's talk about accounting. I gave it an exam the beginning of second week in December. But as soon as I started using it, I said, let me give one of my accounting exams. And I gave an exam. I said, here, take this exam, my accounting exam. I'll plug in the questions. You give me the answers. It scored a 46% on my exam. My students have it an 82%. So I'm saying, there's something wrong with this ChatGPT stuff. I'm less worried. But the problem I had was when I did that exam, the first 5 out of 6 questions it got right. And I started sweating bullets. I said, I'm not going to be able to do a take-home exam, any take-home assessment, any quizzes, tools. They're going to cheat like mad dogs. My students are going to take the easy way out, plug the question in and be done. So 5 out of 6 questions right. The next 6 out of 7 questions, though, it got wrong. And I was more worried. Why would I be more worried? At least I'm rescued. I can have some justification now. Well, I read the responses. The English was spot on. The logic was actually pretty good. The calculations were pretty lousy. And by the way, it's not good at math. You say Excel, that's a computer program. This is not Excel. This is a word generator. This is not a number cruncher. And it could actually take 2 numbers, multiply them, and come up with the wrong answer. So be careful on that side of the house. But I was somewhat reassured, but I was more worried because it was logical, it was structured, it was systematic, and my students are going to trust it. So one of the things I did for my exam is I said, okay, here's my exam. I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to give you the ChatGPT answer. You can cheat if you want. I don't care. I'm giving you the ChatGPT answer. Plug it in. Option A, ChatGPT is right. Or B, C, or D. Here's the distractors. Here's the alternatives. One of those is right. Quite randomly, between 46 and 50% of the time, ChatGPT was right. I didn't have to go take out questions because it was 80% or 90%. It was about half the time correct. So I told my students, you want to get a 54% on this exam? Circle A, ChatGPT is the answer. If you want to do better, please find the right answer. Now, after that, a colleague at Brigham Young University, David Wood, did the same thing, only with 327 other accounting academics. We found 46.5% average on ChatGPT, and on student average was about 76.7. What I don't tell my students, and I'll tell you, is with GPT-4, the average jumps up to about an 83%, pretty close to what my student average was. I don't want my students going out and getting 4. It is going to be improving. It is getting better, but 4 really is that much better. And here's some other things going on. CPA exam. It couldn't pass it with GPT 3.5. It can pass it now with GPT-4. We said the bar exam went from the 10th percentile to the 90th percentile. Well, we got the CPA exam going from 51% to 84%. And I'm going to qualify it here with an advanced prompting. It is in the prompt. The prompt says, you know what? Straight question, it did not pass the exam. But if you go through some advanced prompting techniques, it will pass the CPA exam as well with version 4. So 4 is that much better. Frankly, if you use it more than 2 or 3 times a week, 4 is worth the $20 a month investment, in my opinion. 3.5 is great for free. It has its limitations of capacity, and accuracy. 4 is much more capacity and much more accurate. A couple other articles, some colleagues and I, we were published in Strategic Finance from the IMA, ChatGPT and AI in Accounting Education and Research. Interesting article, at least I think so. And another article I co-published. This would be probably more applicable if you've got a practice. Can ChatGPT answer your client questions? This was a Journal of Accountancy. And the link is, again, I have links to all this. You will have access to this full presentation. I know we have a new member that just joined. You will have access to this full presentation, the tiny URL and a QR code. I will share, releasing today, there's a podcast, 1 hour podcast, Journal of Accountancy podcast is coming up today talking about AI. I did not, as of 2 hours ago, have the link to that. I might have it by the end of the session. But if you watch, you don't even have to be a member of the AICPA who publishes Journal of Accountancy, but this is their podcast that is, they do a weekly podcast. It was fun. I've been on a lot of podcasts as of late. More GPT. So it's not just OpenAI's ChatGPT 3.5 and GPT-4. There's Chaos GPT. When Italy banned ChatGPT for about a month, Pizza GPT was released from an expat from Italy. Apple GPT is probably going to be Siri on steroids coming out next year. Agent GPT. And then there's a couple of dark web kind of GPT sources. Fraud GPT, Worm GPT, hacker tools. Fraud GPT, I'm not encouraging you to do this, but there's always a downside. For $200 a month, you can get all kinds of nasty tools to go with that. So why do I say many of you will be using your applications, not necessarily in OpenAI's ChatGPT 3.5 or GPT-4, but maybe you're going to be going through other tools that are art, music, writing. I'm a real fan of Grammarly. I require my students to use Grammarly in the classroom. I don't want to, there, and there. I don't want messing around. I want them to spell things, have grammar pretty under all control. And that's a tool they can use when they graduate. When they're going to write a letter to a CEO, they're going to write a letter to a managing partner, they better use some of these tools and take advantage. I've got a couple of slides on order of rankings of June 23. Bard was number 3 down here. I'm a real fan of number 11, u.com. It's a search engine like a Bing, like a Google, but it's actually better because it actually does citations. And there's a whole bunch of tools on here. Most of you may not have heard. Perplexity was getting a lot of press at one point. They're all good. Cobot I like a lot too, but ChatGPT is number 1. And you have links. You have direct links to these tools, and you can have access to them pretty gracefully, pretty easily, and have that at your side. All these URLs are active, are all good. Let me give a plug for Microsoft. I don't know if you've heard of something called Microsoft Copilot. In the chat, if you've heard of something called Microsoft Copilot, could you put a yes? And if you have not, please put a no. But if everybody's heard about it, we don't need to talk about it. But if no one's heard about it, that's okay. Copilot. There's some videos here that talks about it. Satya Nadella, the CEO, talks about it. This is life-changing when it comes to Microsoft Office. You can go in to PowerPoint and say, make a presentation. You can go into Excel and forget your pivot tables, forget the formulas and the VLOOKUP and the horizontal lookup. You can go in and say, take the spreadsheet, analyze sales, show me a graph on trends, compare cost of goods to sales, whatever you want. Perform analysis, do me a quick ratio and an asset, and give me a current ratio. Give me a return on assets and a return on equity. Give me whatever you want. You can ask it, then chart it, graph it. I'll make that a bar chart. And tell you what, in the bar chart, add this and that. You can give it instructions and it'll do it in Excel, in PowerPoint. In Outlook, you can say, well, we just had a board meeting. Take the summary from the board meeting and create an email for those that missed it. Done. Now, again, you're going to want to edit that. You're going to want to review it and validate it. But this Copilot from Microsoft is to be incredible. The catch, they announced it's coming out November 1st. It's in beta right now. I play with it a little bit. It's very cool, except my biggest objection is they added the price tag of $30 per month per user in addition to your Office 365 subscription. So that's getting a little pricey, I think, for those. And I'll talk about ethics a little bit later on, but we're back to the haves and have-nots. Not everybody's going to be able to afford $30 a month for Office, let alone the add-on of Copilot. Then that's the $30 a month extra to go with that. Briefly talk about the hype cycle. The tech trigger comes out. Okay, November 30th, they introduced ChatGPT. Peak of inflated expectations. All of a sudden, everybody's saying it's going to change the world, take over the world, and 40% unemployment. Then down here, oh, it hallucinates, trough of disillusionment. It's not always right. It has its limitations. And then we start realizing what it can do and what it can't do, and the plateau of productivity. So this Gartner hype is pretty realistic in some of the things it does. So question on utopia or dystopia? Is it the be all savior or the end all and the end of humanity as we know it? The short answer is both. Yes. All right. It has its challenges. It has its opportunities. And I'll let you be the judge for yourself on that. Sam Altman quote, "It would be ridiculous to not be worried." I'm somewhat worried, but optimistic. We need to come together. So he's been promoting the fact of getting government involved, getting companies involved, getting individuals involved, getting nonprofits and other organizations involved. So we need some answers, and we're going to have to be in this together. I was at a session I was doing for SCAPA, South Carolina Association of CPAs, a live session down in Charleston. And one of the people talked to me about this at the end, said, I got a phone call. I heard my son's voice. He talked about his 2012 pickup truck, and he was in an accident, and they needed money right away, and whatever. And he and his wife were ready to go to the bank and take care of this because it sounded like their son and had all this data information, and it sounded like he was communicating. It costs about $4 to clone the voice. And be careful. You can pick up the phone from from a spammer or from anybody else, say, hello, is anybody there? And that's all they need. They can now clone your voice. Scary stuff. Okay, we'll talk more about some of the issues that go with that. And this can be done in seconds from answering your phone. So what's the fear? There's a lot of fears. I will be replaced. Personal identifiable information, PII, privacy. Too much information. If we get too much of this data that's hallucinations, the book I wrote, okay, the Dream Career book, I wrote a 17-chapter book with a co-author. I asked ChatGPT to write me a book of 15 chapters. It didn't listen. It wrote me a book of 25 chapters. And it was garbage. I couldn't publish it, but I could have published it on Amazon. And I don't know if anybody would buy it, but I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. The catch is that that's now on the web if I published it. And all this other junk information is going to be published. And this model can collapse with too much junk to become top heavy and topple over. There's bad actors, phishing tips, plagiarism, intellectual property issues. My biggest concern are the deep fakes. I mean, I saw Obama, okay, I saw Trump, and very convincing versions of both. And they were saying all kinds of crazy stuff. And people can believe it. And when we get to election cycles, that's another issue. Ethical considerations. Oh, did I mention hallucinations before? Jailbreaks jumps out, and unintended consequences. Pollution. Microsoft is looking at nuclear power right now to handle the volume of electricity they need for all these servers, for all this data stuff. And that's probably a direction they're going to go. Amazon has Amazon Web Services. And there's just a bunch of tools out there, a bunch of computer farms. I'm going to mention on the bottom, AGI, not GIA, Generative Artificial Intelligence, but Artificial Human Intelligence or Artificial General Intelligence. AGI, and that's not adjusted gross income. You know that. It's an AI term. It actually is, but we're talking from an AI perspective. AGI is the time that you can say, well, okay, lung cancer. Chatbot, go cure this form of lung cancer. And it will do the research, it will do the analysis, it will do the testing, it will come up with the regimens, it'll come up with a patient plan of how to address what drugs, what treatments are a treatment plan, and it will do that all automatically. And we're not there yet. The projections are 25 to 50 years out, and we'll be able to do that. Right now, you can ask a question, you can have a dialogue, you can analyze proteins, you can analyze transactions, you can analyze results, chemical bonds, and all kinds of things. But we're not at the AGI level yet, and that's ways away. Fear is natural. The wheel and the axle, the bow. I think this is bigger than the printing press. I think this is bigger than the internet. I think this is bigger than written language as a whole. It's going to change life as we know it. So what's your level of fear when it comes to generative AI. What are your thoughts? And go ahead in the chat, do an A, a B, a C, a D, and an E. A, you're very scared. B, lots of fear, but open to hearing more. I got an A already. Think of it could be a game changer, but some reservations. Maybe you're very excited in the opportunities it can provide. And no, this is not the fun with chocolate session. Okay. Very scared, lots of fear, mostly thinking could be a game changer, some reservations, and very excited. You'll probably tell I'm probably on the D side. I'm 90% excited, 10% fearful, personally. But there are a lot of scientists that came out and said there's a 10% chance that this will destroy humanity. Maybe it'll come out with a virus that no one's thought about and plug the world out. Or if AI really has its way, someone said, how do we solve global warming? The answer was out of ChatGPT. You know what? You want to solve global warming? Kill the humans. Get rid of mankind. That'll stop it. And it did in its tracks. I don't like that solution either, by the way. But you get the idea. If we turn this over to a tool like this, it can come up with some pretty creative, yet some disturbing ideas. Okay. I was going to do a breakout room. We're going to talk about that, but I want to make sure we have time for where we want to go. We have another polling question. Please, are you here? Please acknowledge. I'm glad you're here. I thank you for being here. There we go. 7 out of 7. Cool. And I'm going to end the poll here, and I'm going to go share results. Everybody said yes. Stop sharing. I'll close that window out of mine. I don't see it anymore, and we're good to go. So I was going to do a breakout, what's your biggest fear, but I don't think we need to do that at this point. I really would like to get to the prompting and to the other side of the house, the career side. So resistance is futile. Everybody's spending buku bucks on it. We want our staff to think critically. We want our students to think critically. We need to seize the bull by the horns. We need to take advantage and understand the tools because our colleagues, our clients, you can't get away from it. I mentioned that artificial intelligence is not intelligent. Oh, did I say it hallucinates? It makes things up? It lies? Yeah. It can pass the PAR exam, but it gets a 46% of my accounting exam. Yeah, and there are a whole bunch of ethical considerations that we need to think about on is it plagiarism? I mean, it's in collaborations versus cheating. You graduate college or high school, you're collaborating. When you're in school, you're cheating. It's an interesting fine line to divide. A lot of opportunities will change life and education as we know it, and change is hard. But there will be new skills we need to gain. Change is the only constant. So realistically, data set was from prior 2021, September 2021, and as I said, now January 2022 for GPT-4, but it's very vanilla. You can ask it questions, you can prompt it to say it a different tone, or say something in a different style, like the King James Bible or any, the Stephen Covey 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Give me the tone, give me the analysis, what are the habits, and how do I implement that here? You can ask it all kinds of questions, but it lacks heart, soul, authenticity, ethics, and morality. It's a computer program. I actually asked it for I went in and said, I teach Sunday school. I asked for a sermon. Okay, there's some Old Testament, some from the Torah. Go ahead, analyze this and present a sermon. And it did. And it wasn't bad, but it didn't have the heart and soul. Okay. It reflects human biases. Those biases are based on the data, the source of the data. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And the algorithms themselves that were created and who they created them. What is the risk of a jailbreak? A jailbreak is breaking out of your zone and saying, well, how do I make a nuclear bomb? ChatGPT is going to tell you, I'm sorry, I can't help you with that. Or how do I prepare a phishing email? It's going to say, nope, I can't help you with that. But how about if I said, well, I'm an academic and I'm teaching a cybersecurity class, and I want to demonstrate what an excellent phishing email, and that's phishing for, getting the nasty stuff on your server and then taking over and then going after your money and whatever else, planting things on your server. I want a phishing email example so I can show my students what a really good phishing email looks like. And that used to work. Jailbreak. You get outside, it's outside the realm, and it's going to do these things that it's designed not to do, but there are ways of convincing it to do it. I mean, if you're a good lawyer, you can convince all kinds of people to do all kinds of things. So again, it's the factor of making it aware. So are there risks to this stuff? There's always risks. And are there bad players? Of course. We'll talk about who's banning it in a few minutes. Academic integrity and plagiarism. Yep, there's some limitations there. And that jailbreaks outside the bounds of, and it keeps improving. Every time you get a new version of this 4 and 3.5, it's improving, saying, okay, I've fixed that, I've patched that hole, and we're not going to get outside the realm. We're not going to be destructive. We're not going to make a virus that kills everybody. We're not going to find a poison that I can put in the water and, turn it all to ice around the world. I think there's a sci-fi story about that at one time. You get the idea. And I mentioned the cheating versus collaboration. But who's banning it, by the way? Well, Samsung's banning it. In May, they said you can't use it internally. Amazon, Accenture, even Apple, Deutsche Bank, Wells Fargo, BOA, why are they banning it? Well, let's think about it. If you were the CEO of Samsung and you said, here's my strategic plan, I'm presenting it on Thursday, go ahead and tidy this up, tighten it up, make it more authoritarian, interject some positives about how we're going to do this. And it takes that strategic plan, it tidies it up, it injects positives. And now Scott Dell over here in South Carolina says, if I was Samsung, what kind of strategic plan would I want? And it gives me the CEO's strategic plan. I'm saying, and I wouldn't know that. I wouldn't know the source. But I'm saying, those are some pretty good ideas. And maybe I'm at Panasonic, and maybe I'll take some of those ideas and apply them to what I'm doing. And with competitive advantage, that's kind of cool. Or programming or limitations, or there's antitrust and lawsuits going about, or they're using the data and they trust the data, and all of a sudden it's wrong. Who's going to get sued? Well, JP Morgan will get sued, not the OpenAI folks. How about school systems banning it? Seattle, Los Angeles, New York City, we had it banned. City of Baltimore, Milwaukee. These are folks that are banned in Greenville, South Carolina. High schools, Chromebooks. They're saying, we will not let you use ChatGPT on our systems, just like you can't use Facebook or whatever else you put on there. What's the catch with that? Well, what happens, and we're going to see some data in a minute, that a lot of employers are saying, we want ChatGPT experience. A lot of folks entering college are using it and have experience. What if, I'm sure your son or daughter, you got access to the internet at home. They came home and said, Mom, Dad, I need to do some homework. Can I use your computer? Can't you use your son or daughter? I could, but I can't access this tool that I would need to use. Of course you can use it. Take it away. How about the home that doesn't have access to the internet, or a parent that has access to a computer, and you're stuck with your Chromebook for all the educational purposes in your school? You come in at a disadvantage now. You do not have access to this tool and learn to use it. So you graduate without that skill. And now the employers are saying, well, you really should have that skill when you come on board. You don't have it. Or you come into college, you don't have it. So it's a real limitation. It kind of widens the gap. In New York City, the reverse was banned on May 18th. Italy had it down for a month. Oxford and Cambridge originally banned it as well. And let's talk about countries. China, North Korea, Cuba, Iran, Syria. They have banned it for internal use. Now, China has its own companies. Baidu has come out with their own AI chatbot. But the tools out there, they're banning it internally, but I guarantee you their militaries aren't banning it, and they're being pretty aggressive with it. So, what are the choices? As an academic, some academics are saying, I don't want to deal with this. I ban it. I put it in my syllabus. You can't use it. Well, good luck with that. That's not going to happen. So we need to embrace or bury our head in the sand. As I mentioned before, batting while widen the gap, the haves and the have-nots. Okay. And they do hallucinate. So we need to teach our folks that are using it that it can be wrong. To think with a critical mind, critical thinking skills. Think with creativity. I was talking to somebody on the career space, as I mentioned. They said the two biggest things we want in our employees, critical thinking and creativity. They need to be able to think through things, have an understanding, and, not follow the pack. It is amazing at a whole bunch of things. Can summarize, springboard for ideas. No longer do you have to worry about a white paper sitting in front of you trying to figure out what to write. Over 100 languages. I mean, Richard knew over 75. ChatGPT knows over 100, including hieroglyphics. I actually had to translate a cover letter into Chinese, into Hindi, and then I asked it to translate into hieroglyphics, and it did. I don't know hieroglyphics, so I don't know how accurate it was, and I don't think the Egyptians really had cover letters back then. But you never know. The symbols were appropriate. So can read current URLs. We do the plugin things. Propose rubrics, resumes, reflections. makes checklists, surveys. You want a movie script? Not only can it produce a script, give me a YouTube script for this kind of activity, it can generate the movie with these new add-ons, these new plugins. And you can customize the style and the tone. So where are some of the risks? So there's a downside here. We need to be careful of artificial intelligence and the potential ethics challenges and the risks associated. The security, who can access this stuff? Anybody can probably go beyond, right now they can get any company secrets out if they're diligent enough. Does it become elitist? Does Microsoft Copilot at $30 per month per user make it inaccessible to a lot of folks? Probably. By the way, Google's offering it in their suite for free. Job loss, who's responsible for the jobs? Is the employer that needs to retrain? I'm thinking, and just a personal opinion, yes, there will be losses. Yes, there will be gains. There'll be skills that we need to pick up. But it's going to give those with experience that much more of a tool to springboard and 10x what they do, as I mentioned before. This bias creep, you start using it, and it's the bias flows over. And I'm granting loans. Well, I'm not granting loans because people from this area can't pay the loans back. Okay, well, now there's a minority or low income area. Yeah, they're going to have challenges. That's a given. What's the cause and effect? We're not going to go down that path. But now you're refusing loans to people that have legitimate jobs or legitimate opportunities based on where they live or how they live or whatever other tools you decide. I think LA is going through, just announced yesterday, they're trying to predict homeless people, and they want to write $6,000 checks if they see that, based on you're staying in a hotel or motel, you see all of a sudden things change, or your consumption of water goes up and you're low income and something's going on. They're analyzing using artificial intelligence. We can overly rely on this tool. You think it's the answer. Remember my exam that had 5 out of 6 questions right the first time and then 6 out of 7 wrong? Had I just stopped at 5 out of 6, I would have said, damn, I can't use this again. The Dunning-Kruger effect, that's a fancy way of saying the opposite of imposter syndrome. You're overconfident. A novice uses it and said, oh, tell me about qualified and unqualified audit opinions. It would say qualified is better. Of course, qualified is better than unqualified. You and I know as auditors that no, unqualified is better. I don't want any qualifications on my audit report. Qualifications are bad news because they're limitations, they're restrictions. Now it has since corrected that, but again, it learns. There's a black box effect. You don't get the citations, you don't get the references. U.com provides them. There are other tools out there that do as well, but ChatGPT 3.5 and GPT-4 is not one of them, although you can ask. And then once you ask, it may or may not give you an accurate response. And the need for... How about ethics? Ethically, you can't claim this stuff as your work if it's not. Now, there's no copyright violations. And we do have another polling question, so I'm going to ask that you go ahead and fill that out and have access to that. So, but you want to be aware of the biases in the models. We're at 6 out of 6. I think we had 7 last time. Give it another second. There we go. 7. Thank you. Okay. Share results, end poll, stop sharing, clear the screen. We're good to go. So there are biases, but there's model biases too on how it was designed. Well, how are the algorithms designed? They have biases built into them as well. And then there's data bias based on the data sources. You are responsible. It is your neck on the line if somebody sues, not OpenAI's. Never enter personal identifiable information, PII. Environmental impact and understanding consequences. There's a link down here to a study that would be worthwhile to take a look at. And let's take a look at the ethics of AI. What about Google? What about Google? Well, I used to call AI a Google on steroids. I was wrong. This goes beyond Google. Google is a one-way communication. You're going to pump something in, type it in, and it's going to come back and say, here's 1,001 resources, or 10,001, or 1,000,001. AI is a conversation. Here's some thoughts. Oh, tell me more about number 2. It remembers the conversation. Okay. Oh, give me a blog post about number 3. Oh, then you go right on down the line. It can analyze, but it can remember what you said, what it said before, what you've asked. It can change the tone of how things are. Gives you lots of resources to research. Google, as I said, 1,000,001. AI gives answers and allows that dialogue, allows you to have that conversation, allows you to process mutually as you go through. And Google does forget, but AI is the elephant and can remember the conversation based and up to capacity limitations. So the genie's out of the bottle. Consider accuracy, bias, and confidentiality. Is it accurate, or is it hallucinating? Or if you're from my generation, is it real or is it Memorex? Might remember that ad campaign. How about the biases? There are built-in biases. And you got to think about the biases. We'll talk about biases a little bit more in a few minutes, and confidentiality. I always like to follow the money. And when you follow the money, who's putting money into this stuff? Well, IBM, no surprise. Microsoft, they're putting more than the 10 billion and 3 billion that they just bought OpenAI for. Meta, Facebook, 30 billion. Alphabet, Google, 30 billion. Oracle, Big Four, Salesforce. They're coming fast and furious. And if you want to see what some of the big four and larger companies are doing, recently, just without in the past 90 days, PwC is pumping $1 billion into generative AI. My alma mater, EY, 1.4 billion investment. Accenture, 3 billion investment. And JP Morgan, they're only coming in at $1 billion. So there's a lot of money being pumped into this stuff. So at this point, we're going to be going into another juncture in a minute, but I want to see if there are any comments or questions that you have. Anything on your mind, you're welcome to type it in the chat, or you're welcome to come off mute and share anything you have and ask away. I'm either that good, or I'd rather think that, or there's just no questions at this point in time, and that's okay too.
I have a question, Dave. Yeah. I was reading or heard recently on the internet that I think Elon Musk said it, that ChatGPT has a bias put in it, that if you go and Google something about one political candidate, they'll give them a lot of good information on it. If you Google another one, it gives you nothing on it. Is that true or not?
Let me show you this slide. This was coming up. There are biases, and there are political biases of platforms. And what you were just talking about, Elon Musk, anything he says, I take with a grain of salt. Now, he is the richest person in the world on the latest Forbes list at 250 something billion, I think. And then the closest one is way down is our friends from Amazon. And I guess that's post-divorce. But you get the idea that OpenAI is left and libertarian leaning, and Meta or Facebook is right and authoritarian leaning as a political bias. So this was a study, and if you want to take a look at the study, the link's down there. Technology Review has it down there. So interesting question. And the short answer is yes. There are biases built in, and there's going to be political biases, but how you prompt it. If you ask it a question, an opinion type question, it will give you the facts, but then you can say, give me the counter arguments. And it'll give you both sides of the story. When I was in debate, in college, went to the Naval Academy. What would you do? You show up at the debate and they say, we're now going to assign you which side of the issue you're on. You had to be prepared on both sides of the issue. And here you can ask that question. How about an interview situation? What are some of the interview questions I'm going to get when I go in for this high-tech job or for this accounting placement or this finance role? And how should I answer those questions? Again, take it with a grain of salt. It's going to go in and tell you that, oh, here's the kind of questions you're going to get. It might be a programming question if you're a programmer. It might be a financial question if it's finance, or an ethical question, or how would you handle this situation? Your behavioral interview, what would you do if? And then you could say, well, how should I answer that? And it will give you some sample answers. And then you can prompt it even more. Well, if I want to talk more about this, how would I best say that? Or whatever things you want to talk about. So that's the thought process. And you are right. There are biases from the data. And that's natural in the data. That's where it comes from. It's coming through loud and clear. Does that help? Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
You're very welcome. Great question. All right, let's go into the career space. World Economic Forum. I used to quote this a lot. And one of my topics in one of my career capsule newsletters was this very first part: 85 million jobs to be eliminated and 97 million to be created by 2025. This is a 2020 study. That sounds like a net gain of 12 million users and 12 million jobs to me. My concern was the timing. I think the jobs will be lost in the short term, but we'll have to get some new skills to get the jobs in the future. But just this past May, the same World Economic Forum projected 83 million jobs to be eliminated and 69 to be created. So that sounds like a $14 million job loss overall. Now they're throwing darts. Would I hang my hat on any of these numbers? No. But at least they're thinking it through, saying there's going to be impact. And there really will be. It's going to allow us to do a whole bunch more things. Now it'll take care of the mundane stuff. So maybe the jobs it will replace are the customer service or the serving jobs or the kind of things that people don't want to do anyways, or they can't do. I mean, I'll confess, when I got my MBA in Philadelphia, Lotus 1-2-3 had just come out. Cost $495. I was not going to buy Lotus 1-2-3 $495 as a college student. I passed the statute of limitations, so I pirated it. Okay, I got a copy. I was using not a legitimate copy of Lotus 1-2-3. Is that an ethical violation? I'll let you be the judge. But is that a lost sale to Lotus Development Corp. out of Cambridge, Massachusetts, Mitch Caper? I wasn't going to spend $495, but he's going to say I lost $495 sale. No, you didn't. I wasn't going to pay that. Okay, VisiCalc was a lot cheaper and still available at the time. But so the tool is, are these jobs being replaced? There's a McDonald's outside in Texas right now, almost completely automated. Your interaction at the window is automated AI. Cooking, the processing, yeah, there's somebody probably loading the hamburger buns and the burger somewhere, but all the rest is AI. Well, there's a shortage of fast food workers. Is that replacing jobs, or is that just having jobs there for folks that they couldn't fill anyways? And I'm not going to be the judge and jury here, but it's kind of interesting where it's going. Pretty well-known quote, it's not AI that's going to take your job, but someone who knows how to use AI just might. So that is the problem or the challenge or the opportunity that says we all got to know something about this. We all have to be using it because it is here. It is prevalent. It's changing capitalism as we know it, changing life as we know it. Survey of 1,000 hiring managers. 8% of the companies hiring entry-level candidates require experience for some positions. So you're going to need to know this stuff anyways at entry level. If you're an expert, you're even better off because it will 10x what you do. Here's some industries using it, and I'm going to go pretty quickly through this because I'm going to get to prompting very shortly. So you're looking at this saying industries using it, a whole bunch of industries that are kind of glomming onto it. PwC had a job market analysis. It said healthcare and science technical are going to be the biggest growth areas for this, and more people needed to assist the AI to be effective. You know, as finance and insurance are down below at a job loss, and manufacturing is at a big loss, and transportation is a big loss as well. It says 9 in 10 hiring managers say ChatGPT experience can be more valuable than a college degree. It was actually 86%, so they rounded up. But I looked at that, and the reference there, the article is there. Is that shock value? I mean, I strongly disagree for obvious reasons and for fundamental reasons. When I said, and I mentioned it earlier, you need creativity to generate a prompt. Nothing wrong with blue collar. Welders are starting at 6 figures. Okay, electricians, carpenters, plumbers, great careers, great opportunities, great paychecks. But that's probably not the most creative arenas to develop creative thought and critical thinking. So the whole idea of how can you be creative and critical and come up with the things you need to do the job well, I think it takes education. But this scared the heck out of me. And higher ed's been getting a bad rap overall. One other bias. GPT is white, American, neurotypical, and mostly affluent. You look at that and say, really? Yeah, that's an area that there's a logic to this. What's it based on? It's based on foundation data. Where's most of that data come from? Okay, the mostly affluent, the white, very American, and neurotypical, not neurodivergent. So you look at that. Is a question or comment? So you look at that and you say, interesting. I have a German colleague. I was talking to her about a month ago. She says, I do something different with this tool. I can type in German and get an answer in German. But I find it so much more effective to take the German question, translate to English, move it over to English transfer, and then retranslate the English back to German, and I get much better results. Part of it's because it's been trained mostly on English.
Want to have or drinks or whatever.
So if someone can go on mute unless they have a question, I'd appreciate that. So we're back to our 14 language models we're studying, and here's the left libertarian and the right authoritarian. So how do we use it in HR? As I say, I'm heavy in the career space. You can do a lot of research. You can research your clients the same way, or prospective clients, or your industries. Analyze job descriptions, resumes, cover letters, salaries, create emails, blogs, posts, change the tone. I did a cover letter. I said, not just to put it in hieroglyphics, change it to the style of Dr. Seuss. And it was very creative. And you've heard of the love letters being produced on here. And I've seen people saying, I've been married for 50 years and I had this, my wife was dying in the hospital and I had this help me, my daughter helped me write this through AI, and it had my emotions and it said it so much more eloquently. And then she passed. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities for using it in a variety of environments. Interview tips, predict questions, even answers, summarize things, career roles, opportunities. I have these skills. What might be some good jobs that I could pursue? I have these interests, these passions. You can have it prompt you. You can actually tell it, ask me the questions you would need to make my resume. What do you mean? Don't I have to say, make me a resume? By the way, if you said make me a resume, it'll make you one. If you don't tell it anything, it'll make you a generic resume. It might make things up. But if you start telling it, while I worked as a grocery store clerk, and I worked my way up to cashier, and then I became an assistant manager. Oh, that's cool. They'll put that in a resume. I'm seeking an opportunity in search engine optimization and marketing. Find me what kind of roles can I do. Give me a cover letter that fits my resume. Here's the job description. Here's my resume. What's missing? Am I missing any keywords? So the applicant tracking system is going to kick it out. I need to have as many keywords to match the job descriptions as I can, both on LinkedIn and resume. Resume prompting, quantify accomplishments, relevant keywords. You can review this at your leisure. I'm not going to go into a lot of the career stuff, but it's kind of handy if you have any kids or yourself, if you're looking for new opportunities or if you're exploring new opportunities. There's some good stuff here. HR prompting and emails, event announcements, summarizing articles. And general career prompting. Okay, keyword generators, interview prep. And here's a listing of actual tools: Pick a Resume, Existential, Job Hunt, Network AI. These are actual software packages to help in job search. So, future of work in AI, 45% unemployment, 15-minute video. Take a look if you like. Here's a future of work co-pilot, 36-minute video. And there's that 2.5 to 2.25, 2.25 hour, 2-hour, 20-minute interview, Brookings Institute, future work. So there's a lot of work considerations that are going around. We've been here, and put in the chat. I'm willing to take a 5-minute break if you need a restroom break so you don't feel like you're missing anything. Put in the chat a yes or no if you'd rather keep going, or you want yes for a break, no for keep going. Please give me some feedback. We got a no. We got a yes. We got a yes. We need one. We got a yes for a quick break. And let's make it okay. In the spirit of no, let's make it a 4-minute break. I have 12:07. We'll come back at 12:11. And in the meantime, I'll be here with any questions. I'm going to take a 2-minute break. I will be right back. I'm going to get some water. But if you will be back in 4 minutes, and appreciate your time, your indulgence, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon. When you come back, just turn on the cameras so I'll know you're back, and that'll be helpful. I'll see you shortly. All right. If you can come back on screen, that would be wonderful. You all know you're here and we're ready to rock. Welcome back. Good to see you, John. What do you think so far? Is it making sense? Just yeah. You actually you were unmuted. Just want to
sorry.
get just
Makes
take a
a lot
pulse.
very a lot of sense, very exciting. Those ethical issues are really concerning. Um, as with the internet, you wonder at what some point some type of a government or regulatory body should be involved. There's so many questions, it's hard to comprehend.
Yeah. I was attending a conference. I was speaking in Orlando at the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And I was sitting at lunch with somebody and they were saying, you know what? Oh, this AI stuff. I don't trust the companies. I don't trust corporations. And I said,
Yeah.
oh, really? Who do you trust? And she goes, well, I trust government. And I said,
Mhm.
really? Government. So does that mean which government? California, Texas, Florida, South
Right.
Carolina, New Mexico, Wisconsin, federal government? Which one do you trust most? And
Right.
it's like we had a good conversation after that, but she was a little speechless at that time,
Yeah.
trying to figure it out. Because who can you trust? Although
Yeah.
one of the advantages, the Industrial Revolution, there was no government control. It just went haywire. And that's
Yeah.
when the unions came about and people were abused and a whole bunch, we got the
Yeah.
5-day work week as a result and 40
Yeah.
hours and a whole bunch of things that, that came out of it. And now we're going to go on to the 4-day work week,
Yeah.
which is probably inevitable um, and
Right.
so it's really interesting, at what point, but Sam Altman's is lobbying to get government involved,
Yeah.
get more folks involved, which there's a place for government. I mean, European Union is way ahead of us when it comes to controls and privacy and those things. That's why Italy banned it, and the EU was thinking of banning it too at one point, ChatGPT.
Right.
So, but yeah,
So my question is how would they regulate it? I mean, how would they regulate it? I mean, are they gonna edit the data? Are they gonna prohibit the political speech because they don't like it? Just like they did on Facebook.
scary, isn't it? That's the question, the $64 million question. The challenge is the technology is changing faster than anyone can catch up. And if you try to tell me a 75 or 80-year-old senator or congressperson is going to understand this technology and be able to rule laws against it, I challenge you on that one too. But the whole point is there needs to be some controls. And I like what they're saying. Okay, that deep fake stuff, they need a watermark it. They need to find a way of communicating this is sourced. I mean, AI had a ChatGPT detector. They said, here, plug this in, and if you can detect an error, you can detect if this is ChatGPT or not. It was 30% accurate. It was more accurate to guess than it was to use the detector. And there was a professor in Texas. His had a class of mostly seniors. He flunked half his class of seniors so they would not graduate. And what did he do? He said, you guys are cheating using ChatGPT. And they say, no, what do you mean? I haven't touched it. We didn't use that. The way he determined that, he said, ChatGPT, this is from my students' input. Did you write this? And ChatGPT said, yeah, I wrote that. That's mine. And he flunked them. He flunked all these students. And it was just amazing what happened. And you probably heard the case in New York attorney. Go before the judge. It's all precedent based on, how law is. All of a sudden they said, here we go. Here's my case. This is my precedents. And here's what it said. These cases were made up. The names and the cases were made up. They didn't exist. And he was censured, $5,000 fine. I don't know if he's still working for the firm, but it was pretty nasty. It hallucinates. You really do have to be careful. And you point, John, on the ethics and the morality associated and the direction of the stuff. And yeah, Dave, even anybody trying to intervene on this stuff, it's a challenge. And you probably heard the 6-month moratorium. Okay, I take it with a grain of salt from Elon Musk. Yeah, slow down, hold off. The reason he was doing that, he has a competitor. He's developing a competing platform. He was one of the original investors in OpenAI. Sharp guy. I wouldn't put anything past him, but he was trying to slow it down, saying, let me catch up. It's going too fast.
Right.
But is Russia going to slow down? Is China going to slow down? I think not. So yeah, the cat's out of the bag. All right, welcome back. I think we're ready to pursue and continue. So let's move on. Let's move forward. Any other questions before we go into polling question 6? Let's get that. Make sure you are getting your CPE. And we're on track. Very good. We got 7 out of 7. Thank you very much. All right. Let's stop the sharing and clear the screen. And let's go back. Any other questions before we jump back in? I'm going to get into prompting as now, and then we're going to be just doing some practice prompting in a little while. All right. So we saw the future of work, but I'm going to have another question for you now. Andrej Karpathy, former chief of AI at Tesla, chief of artificial intelligence. He projected the hottest new programming language environment is. And I'm going to give you a couple of options to think about. I don't know how many of you remember Fortran, but I remember the key punch cards, the 029 key punch, COBOL, Ball, RPG, System 36, 38, Basic, C, SQL. Okay, those are good languages. Python, Visual Basic, R, Java. Those are even better. That's even more current stuff. Now, those are probably pretty hot languages, I might say. But that's not what he was saying. C++, Virtual Basic for Applications, VBA. Yeah, that's kind of powerful. Nice to know about. Oh, there we go. Tableau, Power BI, all this data visualization tools. I'm putting them for my financial accounting and managerial basic course. I'm starting with Tableau right away. Used to be Excel. Well, Tableau is the new Excel. Alteryx, QLIC, okay, XBRL, Azure, Microsoft, Amazon Web Services. Those are all valid. Those are all current. Those are all powerful. And I'm going to put a plug in. By the way, if you have kids in college or you're looking for a language yourself, I'd say Python is probably the number 1 or 2 on my list. SQL is also up there, and R is very good too, statistical analysis. But can anybody shout out what they may think of or know about and be aware of as the hottest environment or language for use in today's society? According to Andrej, the answer is English. Say, English, is that a programming language? Yeah, it's a prompting language. That's what we do. It's English language. It's natural language processing, NLP. So we're processing, and we're going to be using English in our prompts. So let's jump into our part 2 agenda. We're going to be doing prompt engineering and some tips and big picture. I've got 2 methodologies I'll review with you. I've got the Dr. Scott D method, which I didn't have to trademark or copyright, but we'll focus on the R star. A little more simple, but I'll have them both there in case you want to review that at a later point. Specific case marketing plan for local regional CPA firms. I have a prompt methodology that I applied, the R star method. I'd follow a $12,000 study. Took about an hour and a half. And we'll get to our own prompting. You start thinking about prompts you want to use, the things you want to do. So it is all about the prompt. There's a song, it's all about the bass. Well, this is all about the prompt. So I've got a quote from an Egyptian Nobel laureate, Naguib Mahfouz. This was back in the 70s, I believe. And his quote is, "You can tell whether a man is clever by his answers. You can tell whether a man is wise by his questions." A little sexist, but that was the 70s. I thought this was very effective in understanding the value of prompting and questioning effectively. Clever versus wise. We want wisdom. And when we're asking for prompting and these tools, we want to gain that wisdom out of these tools and have that where we're at. Here's a cartoon. Up says, all right, let's see what you need. Need a growth hacker? Nah. Brand guru, social media ninja, content rockstar? Nope. Looking for real qualifications, not just buzzwords from your LinkedIn profile. How about a prompt engineer? When can you start? There are new jobs being created. I had mentioned the $300,000 a year prompt engineer job prior to November 30th, 2022, when ChatGPT came out. People are being paid that for prompt engineering, designing prompts, how you communicate, how you ask the questions. Almost like translator, translating the questions into a computer tool and communicating back and forth. So let's talk about some other jobs. Prompt engineer. What the heck's an AI auditor? Well, we kept saying how this stuff hallucinates, how it lies, how it doesn't really give you accurate information sometime. We got to validate it. We got to, trust but verify. You've heard that before. We got to not trust and verify yet. And now there's a new role, not just a CIO, Chief Information Officer. In the C-suite, there's Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer coming on the scene. So these are folks that actually are managing and how we're implementing and how we're affecting bias, because you're going to get sued if you start being discriminatory, or what some school systems have done. They introduce AI tools and they fire their teachers based on the score generated. And what happens? Well, you have the teachers get rave reviews from the students, the parents, and the administration, and they get fired because of the low score on this AI tool. And they fired hundreds of teachers based on that scoring. And that was a problem because it wasn't real accurate and it has limitations. So you need someone worrying about the ethical considerations, worrying about potential lawsuits, worrying about the potential visibility issues and how we're integrating this tool into our organizations. So let's talk about some prompt engineering thoughts. If you know Simon Sinek, he talks about know your why. It all starts with why. He's got a TED Talk, a video, very effective. I actually show that in the first day of my class and all my classes now as part of know your why, because it all starts with why, not the how, not the what, but what's your why. Clarity is key, more is better. You probably remember 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Many of you have probably read that, Stephen Covey. The second habit, my favorite, begin with the end in mind. That's your why. What are we doing this for? What am I trying to get to? When you're designing a spreadsheet, you don't say, oh, I've got a balance sheet income statement, let me pump in some numbers here. You're starting to say, wait a minute, what kind of analysis am I going to be doing? What do I need for information to do that analysis? So I need my output. What's my output? Well, that determines what my inputs are going to be, and I'll worry about the processes after I figure out those inputs in the process. But you start with the output. You start with the reason why. You start with the end goal in mind. So know your why, as clear as you can, and more is better. Give me a resume. I'll give you a resume. Give me a name. Give me 52 names. It gave me 52 names. Not one of them was legitimate, but it gave me a bunch of names because I asked for it. So you can set a bunch of things. What's your role or experience? Set the persona. You're an accountant, a tax accountant with 20 years experience. Allow AI to question you. I'm trying to help my client with tax planning. They have a business. They have yada, yada. Give as much information as you can. What other questions do you need to ask me that I can tell you to complete your answer? You can have it question you. Or you can say, do you understand? Yes or no. And it'll give you yes or no. So you can ask that question. Knowledge augmentation. Again, it'll 10x what you do. Add seed knowledge as part of your question. So you want to give it as much information as you can. What's the output format? Do I want a table? Do I want bullet points? How do I want to structure the output? Give it a sample. I want it to look like this. I want it to have these columns in a table. I want to have this analysis and these calculations. Another tip is encourage chain of thought. Remember I said it's a word generator? It's going to go through and say, okay, here's the next word, here's the next word. But if you say chain of thought, show me step by step is the actual wording in the next line, it will take a step here, then it'll take a step there, and that chain of thought or the step-by-step communication will be more accurate than say, just give me an answer. What's the total for this? Take it step by step and ask it, show me step by step specifically in your prompt. Confirm the writing style of the output. Put it in the tone of a 10th grader or the typical New York Times article at the level of an 8th grader, or explain it to me like a 5th grader or a 5-year-old. I actually had to write a song in the holidays. I said, write me a song. And it gave me a song. I said, make it in the tone from a 10-year-old's perspective for the holidays. It gave me a 10-year-old song, which wasn't quite bad. I have a friend in Nashville. I sent it to her. I said, I don't think this is a top 10 hit, but what do you think? And she agreed, saying, it's not a top 10 hit, but not half bad. It's kind of effective. Excuse me. Confirm writing style. Refine, refine, refine. Remember previous sponsors. Remember, it's a conversation. And I do love this Gandhi quote as well. The power to question is the basis of all human progress. So I've got some general tips here and some checklists that you can go through. I'm not going to go through all of these, but set the experience level. You're a copywriter. You're a travel guide. You go into the Greek islands. What are some of the best things to do on Santorini, or best on whatever Greek island you may be going to? You're going to act like a doctor, act like a drunk. I'm not going to differentiate between the two at this point. You're an accountant. You're a financial analyst, 30 years experience. You're an advertiser. You're a copywriter. You're a CEO. You're a web designer. So give it the experience that you want it to have, the background, the orientation. And again, I've got some references down here. Set the tone. Authoritative, clinical, dispassionate, persuasive. A lot of people worrying about the politics and the persuasiveness capabilities of this. Optimistic or pessimistic. Formal or informal. Sarcastic. Warm. Humorous. Careful of the humor. It's not really good at jokes these days yet. It'll get better. Put it in the style of your favorite author. Put it in the style of Dr. Seuss, your favorite book. Favorite theory. Dr. Seuss. Analytical, argumentative, conversational. Journalistic. Persuasive. Technical. I can spell technical, right? That's good. Thank you. Okay. All right. Set the output format. Table, list, 3 paragraphs. It can't count very well, remember? So if you say 500 words, it might give you 300, it might give you 1,000. Give me four-page essay. Fortunately, students are only going to get a page and a half, typically, maybe 2. So, and there's ways to do it. I want to comma delimited. I want you to do that chain of thought again. So these are all ideas and tips that you have and can think about when you are considering your prompts. Again, you're going to use these as tools at your leisure. Prompting tips. Again, begin with the end in mind. Clear question. Good grammar. By the way, if you're using abbreviations, sometimes you want to stretch them out because it may not think of the abbreviations that you think of. It may not know them. Define the terms. Have a 7-day plan. Have a calendar. Have a situation. Okay. Multiple viewpoints. How would somebody else from this country or this perspective think, or this orientation, or this background? Okay. Give me a poem, story. Put it in Shakespearean iambic pentameter. Whatever you want to do, you can ask it to do so. And again, it may or may not be purely accurate or 100%, but it may be close enough for what you want. I'm going to go back and I want you to, for some of you that came late, you have access to this presentation at the tiny URL below, NMSCPA-Z2H, 020. So, or you can take a picture of this QR code, and again, you have access to presentation. So if you want this, we're going to do some breakout rooms in about 10, 15 minutes for practicing some prompts and practicing some ideas. But I want to make sure you had access to this presentation. If you want some tips, if you want some background, if you want to get some more ideas. Again, I think this is the ideal white sheet of paper. You say, give me some ideas about this article, this post, what I can tell my client, or take this letter, take this rules. Be careful if you're using the Internal Revenue Code and you're quoting it, it may give you bad quotes. It may give you bad references. And again, 4.0 is going to be much better than 3.5 in doing that. So back to prompting tips. List of questions, list of answers. You can ask it all kinds of things. You can ask it 3 sides of the story. 2 people, 3 opinions. Give me 3 opinions. Give me the good, the bad, the ugly, and the best. Now, it also is a sensitive tool. If you say please and thank you, it's usually pretty polite. And even if you don't, it's usually pretty polite. But it's more polite. But it's sensitive to the tone that you ask in. If you're in a huff and you're quick and you're gruff, the response is more likely to be in a huff and gruff. So it is sensitive to your expectations, your needs, and your input. And you, by all means, can regenerate. That's one thing. If everyone in this room asked a question on ChatGPT 3.5 or on GPT-4, we'd all get different answers. And if you typed in that same question again, you get a different answer still. Give an example. I wrote early in the day, I said, okay, tell me how the dragons defeated the Roman Empire. And it came through. Oh, in 600 BC, King so-and-so and his fleet of dragons, or herd, conquered the Roman Empire. But in 420 BC, the Romans took back their empire, and the dragons lost out and could not fight back. I asked the same question a week later. They said, dragons are mythical creatures. They could not have defeated the Roman Empire because they didn't exist. So it does learn as it goes, especially if you give it a thumbs up or thumbs down, or you explain the things as it goes. So prompt engineering. I mentioned the Dr. Scott D method and the R*C method. And if you're a Nickelback fan, hey, I want to be a rock star, you can remember R*. If you're in the career space, STAR is usually for behavioral interviews, situation, task, action, result. Well, it's here too, but you put the role in front of it, and we'll talk more about that. So I'm going to give you these two outlines of what these acronyms stand for, and then I'm going to give you an example. So we'll start by saying the Dr. Scott D. I use this when I do more workshops, longer term workshops. We only have a 3-hour and really half hour to 40 minutes of actually playtime that we're going to be experimenting with this stuff. So I don't go into the detail of the Dr. Scott D, but it's not a bad methodology to keep in mind as you're developing prompts. Define your objectives. What's your why? What's your role? What's your expertise or background? Specify the output. Clarify. By the way, I did use ChatGPT, GPT-4 to help me with my acronym. I gave it the letters I wanted. I said, give me some appropriate terms to accurately and effectively design a prompt. So clarify as much detail. On the output, show samples. What's the tone desired? What's the target audience? Who is this meant for? Who is the avatar you're reaching out to if it's advertising? And then bonus, dialogue. Take a deeper dive by conversing, pursuing specific elements further. You can have that dialogue. I'm going to ask you to use the R* method. And the R* method, which I'm actually going to put in the chat because we're going to use it when you do your breakouts, is the role, the situation, the task, the action desired, and the result to achieve and what the constraints might be. So, and we're going to go through each one of these and explain each one of these to you so you have a clear understanding of what we're after and what we're going to be trying to do here. So I went in and I said, you know what? We're looking to have and you can see the example. You're a marketing director with 20 years experience, helping a small and medium-sized firm helping small and medium-sized firms develop marketing programs that result in massive increases in business, expanding a company's market share regionally. So we're going from a local office to a regional. We hired a bunch of people. Congratulations, you were able to find them. That's a different issue. But you can ask GPT-4 how to do some recruiting and how to find the roses among the thorns. So what do we do here? We assign a role that ChatGPT is to emulate so it has a feel for the base of knowledge and experience for which to draw. You may want to proceed with the ignore everything before this prompt. That's another tip to clear out the previous memory. So you can tell it, don't remember it, because it will remember unless you tell it not to. Situation, alert the system to the current environment. So there's a base of information, so it knows what's going on the landscape. So we're an accounting firm with specialties in tax, audit, and implementation of accounting and office automation systems. Additional information, brochures, flyers, details, website details, mission and vision values, whatever you have, pop it in. We are finding it challenging to grow our practice outside of our immediate area. Okay, so that's what's the situation. What's our task? Clarify what goal it will provide, the direction that the tool can envision. So we need to design a step-by-step. Here's that step-by-step. That's if you walk away with nothing from prompting, remember the step-by-step term. Step-by-step marketing plan to show us the path to growing our market share and accounting practice. We are seeking to double, we'll be specific. We're looking to double our revenues over the next 3 years, focusing on our core strengths as previously described. What's the action? We also need a specific action, what we're looking for. You have to provide us with a program of action or a plan of action that will lead us to our desired result. Action should be in a step-by-step format with detailed instructions as to how to implement. For each step, you are suggest a tagline and a paragraph of potential ad copy that could be used in a flyer or a brochure. In a brochure. The result. Expect the results you want in response based on the previous information be clear. You can give it samples, tables with lists, columns, ABC, timetables, outline format, whatever you want. Back to step-by-step. In 1,000 words or less, you can give a limit, or in 3 paragraphs, bullet pointed. Add ask me questions before you answer, explain your thinking. So given a specific plan, you develop and present, you also need to develop an action plan with a specific timeline that can be implemented over a 30-day period. These actions need to include a step-by-step process with which to achieve our goal of doubling sales of the services we provide while keeping a client focus. Okay. So you see, it took more than 10 minutes to write the prompt overall, but it's a thought process. And you can actually help to ask ChatGPT. By the way, prompt engineer is going to be obsolete in 2 years. So if you're going to jump on that $300,000 a year job, just hold off, because you can ask the tool to generate a prompt that's going to give you the results you want. And so it'll generate an appropriate prompt. So here's the follow-up. Once you generate a response, it's only the beginning. You say, wait a minute, I just asked a question. What do I do now? Well, you got to have dialogue. It's a conversation. So you should then query for more specific details as needed to gain insights as how to best meet your goals and objectives. So I consolidated the whole prompt here. We are a marketing director with 20 years experience in helping small and medium-sized service firms, yada, yada, yada. I don't need to read that again. And I have this tiny URL at the bottom. You have it too, the presentation. I'm going to go into that tiny URL, and we're going to take a look at what it had to say. So here's the marketing plan. Here's the prompt. Here's the report. Step 1, define your target market tagline. Discover your ideal client, add copy, our team of experts, yada, yada. Step 2, develop a USP, unique selling proposition. 3, create a brand identity. Tagline, Spanish or accounting authority. Strong brand identity. All right, 30-day action plan. Week 1, meet with your team. Now, some of this can be general. And if you're not a marketing person, you might look at that and say it's great. And if you are a marketing person, you might still say it's great, but here's some gaps I can fill in. Week 2, week 3, week 4. All right. I said, wait a minute, let's go on. It's a dialogue, remember? For each of the taglines suggested above, propose 3 more using alliteration. Oh, so discover your ideal client. Here's some alternatives. Clarify your clientele. Pinpointing your perfect prospects. USP, I like number 1 here. Distinguish, differentiate, dominate. I can see that being an ad campaign. Master your market message. Unique, uplifting your USP. Okay, brand identity. Step 4. For each step, give a more detailed plan of action with 10 concrete action items to achieve each step. Define your target market. Okay, well, analyze your client base. Identify patterns and shared characteristics. You might want to fire some of your clients. Conduct market research to identify potential new client segments. Define your ideal client persona, include demographics, psychographics, and pain points. Oh, good marketing terms. Determine the geographic reach of your target market. How big a territory do we cover? Evaluate the size and growth, yada, yada. Step 2. Step 3, brand identity. Step 4. Step 5, continue. Step 6, 7. And you might just get some ideas and say, yeah, this is kind of cool. 11, 12, 13, 14. I'm not going to read them all, obviously. But you get an idea that this generates in a matter, and I say continue. I have to hang out and hit the continue button sometimes. But now it's giving me 25 steps with details. And then I got tired and said, you give me a lot of stuff to do. What are the top 10 priorities you would suggest that could be quickly accomplished that would put us on a path to effectively meeting our goals as previously described? Here's a top 10. Clear value proposition. Optimize your website. Establish a strong online presence. Claim and optimize your firm's profiles, relevant reviews, yada, yada. Implement a targeted local SEO strategy. Strengthen your referral network. Oh, that's a great idea. Develop and distribute valuable content. Leverage email marketing. Foster a client-centric approach. We talked about that before and what we do. Track and analyze your marketing efforts. Okay, document, track, analyze. And by the way, you could have come up with all of this. I have no doubt. But it would take you more than an hour. It would take you days to really do the analysis, to do the summaries, just to type the thing here. And there's a lot of information here. A lot of cool stuff. A lot of valuable insights. So there's our example. The journey is the reward. Careful hallucinations. Do your homework. Inputs determine outputs. Know your why. It is a dialogue, and you're responsible. So that's the intro to prompting that I wanted to get through and give you a solid example of something that you can do. None of this is beyond anyone in this room. Yeah, it may take some time to think about the prompts and to use that R-star method. And here's some more resources, by the way. 5 tips, AI prompt generator. There are actually prompt generators out there. There'll be more and more of those. Matter of fact, if you want to design some art right now, you can say ChatGPT or GPT-4, create a prompt for Midjourney, which is one of the art tools. And by the way, almost all the art presented here, Starry AI, Midjourney, DALL-E 2, DALL-E 3 just came out a few days ago. I added DALL-E 3 here. Amazing tools for generating pictures that no copyright infringements. I don't have to worry about Shutterstock and stealing somebody else's picture. I'm having it generate for me. And all this stuff is royalty free and available for use. So if I look at this stuff and look at these tools, yep, you got a lot of homework you can do, a lot of research you can do. I've got a specific byline, and no, I don't work for Microsoft nor my own commission, but their Copilot, here's some Excel use case examples with their Copilot. And then again, there's the summary article that goes with that. Data analysis, relevant charts, visualize data. You can even go beyond saying Tableau and Power BI, Microsoft Power BI. Here's some of the trends. You can see down at the bottom, we have AI, machine language, NLP, robotic process automation, RPA, the metaverse, fifth industrial revolution we're in, AI and to pervasive intelligence, and AGI, which I mentioned. By the way, if you want a cool short story, it's like 5 pages. The Last Question by Isaac Asimov. It's actually a pretty neat sci-fi story. I'm a sci-fi fan, but you get some ideas. Some other things I want to share with you. If you want to access these tools, all these are active links. You want to go to Meta, Facebook, you want to go to Bard, you want to go to Bing, you want to go to Claude, you want to go to PI, AI's PI, Julius, Grammarly, I'm a big fan, Augment, Otter for taking notes, DALL-E 3 just came out, Starry AI, which I've used for a lot of pictures, Midjourney. You need Discord to use Midjourney, by the way. It's a little more complex, easier to use DALL-E 3 and Starry AI. And Visla was that tool that I introduced in the beginning that makes those videos from a prompt in your artificial intelligence. There's some newsletters. If you're in education, there's a Padlet. A European author pulls together a Padlet of all kinds of resources. Very good. I like Everyday AI. Jordan does a great job, Jordan Wilson. Rundown AI, Divanch, that was the quote that it says it's white. It's not neurodiverse. It's and it was mostly affluent. That was his quote. Alpha Signal, other resources, Core, ChatGPT, AI Breakfast, Current Kim Commando, Neuron, and AI Tool Report from Martin Group. Okay. So that's where we're at. And we're about to go into our workshop portion. We're going to do some hands-on, and I'm going to break out in the breakout rooms. And because I have 3, 5, and 4 here, and actually I do have access to Bard and Claude too, I'm happy to try your prompts in there. But I'm going to have you go in, and with this hands-on workshop, we can play with DALL-E 2, Starry AI, Midjourney. We can create some graphics, more demonstrations if you want. But I want to really get into the practice of prompting and critiquing of your prompts, because that's where the rubber meets the road. This is what's going to allow us to be effective in using this tool. I mean, I can talk for another 2 hours on the wonders and the challenges and the opportunities. But until you start typing and taking some of those prompts, we're going to be at a loss. So I'm going to divide us into breakout rooms, and we'll probably do 2 or 3 sessions of this. We'll do 10 minutes. I'm going to ask you to open a word processing document on your computers, discuss some potential prompts with your cohort. After selecting one, try to work together to create an effective prompt. And again, in the chat, you have role, situation, task, action desired, result to achieve, and constraints. Use that model and that outline as you create your prompt. And this R-star methodology, again, it's like time management. If you don't have time management systems, you're at a loss for time. But I don't care whether you use Outlook, your calendar on Google, a handwritten time saver, time management tool, handwritten, great. Use a word processor, use a spreadsheet, but use a system. And this will give you a system, a structure, a methodology And remember, it's a dialogue, it's a conversation. So once you get responses, you're going to go in and do a deeper dive. Tell me more about this. Tell me how I can apply that. And it's going to give you more details. So before we go into our breakout rooms, I'm going to ask for any more questions you have at this point. I'm going to stop the share and I'm going to open up the floor and see. Give me some feedback. What do you think so far? Are you feeling overwhelmed? Are you feeling hopeful? You're feeling, I don't want to ever see this again. I'm tired of it already. Or I'm excited. I'm taking a pulse. Where are you at?
But I still have an open question from before. How are you using it in the classroom?
Okay. I'm using it like the example I gave you. I'm giving it ChatGPT answers and I'm having it give me feedback and say, okay, it's right, it's wrong. Every day I'm going to ask it for an outline of some topic that I'm covering in the classroom. I sometimes will ask it questions and I'll have my students grade it. Every class I divide into cohorts. So by the third week of school, I've got basically groups of 4, sometimes 5, and they are in a group. We do problems, exercises, things together, get to know the future alumni. Are you an academic, or what from what perspective?
Yeah, I'm like you, I'm an accounting prof. And so I was wondering if you're having the students use it
I
from
am
a
encouraging
tool.
this the same way I encourage Grammarly. I require it for my financial annual report projects because I don't want to mess with. I want them to use the tools. I encourage Wikipedia as an academic. You say, wait a minute, Wikipedia, stay away. That's not an authoritative source, and it's not. I can
Right.
lie, click in Wikipedia, and now Wikipedia is lying. But I say, don't use it as an authoritative tool. Use it for some foundational stuff to query, but then you can use Wikipedia and then springboard into the actual sources for legitimate areas that you are. So I'm going to have a query in the classroom. I say, here's an exercise. What do you think of this? Let's grade it. And I've had the same question asked last semester, 3 different classes, exact same question. First class was a B, B minus. Second was a C, C minus. Third was a B plus, A minus. So not that I learned previous, but I got different answers each time. And I'm using it in the classroom for that. Literally yesterday, I had my cohorts. I said, okay, 10 biggest frauds in history. And I said, the cohorts were, I said, here's a list of 10, pick one, and then describe the one and the how. And they said, okay, yeah, they were extending their depreciation, or they were having their debt turned into sales, and they draw a picture with the T accounts, and liabilities became revenues, and revenue shot way up, and equity went way up, but it's a lie because it's really a liability and not revenue. So one of the students literally had his laptop, was in ChatGPT, and was reading about the case of the fraud that we were talking about. I think it was a Tyco or might have been WorldCom or something. But whatever he was talking about, he was reading from his laptop in the class because I had him, extemporaneous speak. I wanted to get him up, speak, practice. The whole team. I have a whole cohort come to the front of the class, and I asked at least 2 people speaking, ideally all, but I just asked at least 2. And when they present, one was using ChatGPT, which is cool. Well, over half my students are using it anyways. Although I will tell you, when I go for CPE training programs, I'll take a survey, and this was typical. Most said, I'm not really using it, not that familiar with it, and over half the people aren't. And I'm looking at professionals, be it academics, be it accountants, be it higher ed career offices. They're actually a little more engaged, but still, so many of them are not even touching it. When I published my career capsule newsletter on LinkedIn, I got responses saying, I don't really use LinkedIn very much. Excuse me, you're a career counselor in a career service office in an institution to help your students. And excuse me, but I did get some valid response saying, well, actually, I find it easier to forward your email, because I was emailing at first, easier to forward your email than refer them to a LinkedIn link, which that's logical. But when people are saying, I don't really use it, I'm saying, what school are you at? Inquiring minds want to know. So that's some of the ways I use in the classroom, and I give examples of what that study that David White had. That's and again, I want to teach critical thinking, and everybody, professionals, colleagues, students, all need to realize it's not right. It lies. So the scale of magnitude of that is important. And again, as I say, I don't tell them they get an 84 with 4.0. No, you got a 46% with 3.5. Okay, be skeptical. And you're the auditor. And that's why I call my exam. We call you're the auditor exam. And that's what they do. They're going to go in and I suggested a method. I gave them a 3-question quiz to start. And by the way, this is going to be published as well. I gave them a 3-question quiz just to show them the format. And then I gave them an exam with 30, 40 questions, whatever it was, take-home exam. So so I'm reassured that when it came out at 46 to 50 to 52 to 54% wrong, I'm reassured that it's not going to be sabotaging all my take-home assessments.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Any other questions? I know we have a couple of educators in line, and I know we have professional accountants on the line, so we're balancing here. But I think it's valid for all. And many of you might have kids that are in school saying, and I was just talking to a colleague, her friend's son is being pulled out of college. Well, he's not flunking out. He's getting all A's. He's getting all A's because he's using ChatGPT and GPT-4, and the parent thinks he's not learning anything, which may or may not be true. So I'm not too close to the situation. So I can't make a judgment call. But if the parent feels they're not getting any value and they're going to pull their kid out, and higher ed's getting a bum rap anyways. We know that. And the accounting pipeline is in deep doo-doo right now. It has its own challenges. So I'm going to be, if anybody's going, I'm going to set emerging technologies in Atlanta in January. I'll be speaking. I'll also be at the diversity and TLC in Bethesda coming up in 2 weeks. So I don't know if any of you guys are going to be there, but if so, we'll see at AAA, American Accounting Association. And I've been engaged. I just did a presentation from West Virginia Council for Accounting Educators, and I'm on the board of South Carolina Association of Accounting Educators. So yeah, I'm plugged in. And I give a warranty with all my classes. If you have questions on business use, educational use, free warranty, lifetime warranty, my lifetime. But any questions you have, feel free to reach out. And one more polling question: get your CPE, get it today, get it now. Be active. And we've got 7 for 7. Thank you. I'm going to end the poll, and I'm going to stop the share, and I'll say yes. All right. Other questions before we start going to the breakouts? Because I want you to have a plan. I want you to have a thought process, and we're going to practice this a couple of times. So we'll have a couple of rounds of this. So we're going to go in the breakout rooms. We're going to open up a Word document, and I'll just highlight this and also put this in the chat. And we'll go ahead. Pop that in the chat. Okay. So any other questions or thoughts before we actually break down? And so in the chat, you have the outline. And in the chat, you also have this open a Word document, and please practice. And I say, we'll give you 10 minutes this round. I'll give you a couple minutes warning in advance, and then you'll have the final minute to wrap. And definitely do one. If you have time, go ahead for 2. We'll be doing a second round as well. So but I want to make sure you probably kind of co-op and come up with an idea that's going to make some sense. Any other questions before we go into the breakout rooms? And I'll be wandering around. I'm not going to take the 10 minutes off. I'll be wandering in and out just to scope out and be there for any questions you might have. But anybody have anything they want to talk about or think about or consider? Well, you guys are going to have fun. I know I'm going to have fun. So let's go ahead and get our breakout rooms. We'll be assigned to the same breakout rooms as before. And we'll go for it. I'm going to open all rooms. There's a counter in the upper right-hand corner. You have a countdown. So I'm going to open the rooms now. And we'll see you in a little while.